Welcome back to Global Glimpse, where we bring you the biggest stories shaping law, government, and justice across America. Clear, factual, and fearless. This is Global Glimpse, your daily source for the truth behind its legal and political power moves. In a major legal development that could have nationwide implications for gun control and state sovereignty, the United States Supreme Court has refused to revive a Missouri law that tried to block local police from helping enforce certain federal gun regulations. This decision, handed down quietly but carrying massive weight, effectively ends Missouri's attempt to nullify parts of federal firearms law and reignites a long-standing constitutional debate over how far states can go in resisting federal authority. The case centers on Missouri's Second Amendment Preservation Act, a controversial law passed in 2021 under the slogan of defending gun rights from what the state legislature called federal overreach. The law declared that several federal gun control measures, including background checks, serial number tracking, and certain firearm registration requirements, were invalid within the state of Missouri. More strikingly, it penalized local police departments and officers up to $50,000 if they cooperated with federal authorities, such as the ATF Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, in enforcing those laws. Supporters of the law, mostly conservative lawmakers and gun rights advocates, hailed it as a bold stand for the Second Amendment and state independence. They argued that Washington has no constitutional authority to compel state police to enforce federal rules they believe infringe on citizens' right to bear arms. Missouri's Attorney General at the time, Eric Schmidt, framed the measure as a shield for freedom, asserting that the state had a duty to protect its people from what he described as unconstitutional mandates. However, federal officials, including the Department of Justice, strongly disagreed. They argued that Missouri's law undermined public safety and created chaos for joint law enforcement efforts. The DOJ sued Missouri in 2022, contending that the act violated the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution, which makes federal law the ultimate authority in the land. Federal prosecutors also warned that the policy had a chilling effect on cooperation between state and federal agencies, especially in tackling violent crime and gun trafficking. The Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals struck down Missouri's law earlier this year, ruling unanimously that the state had no power to nullify federal statutes. The panel stated clearly that while states are not obligated to enforce federal law, they cannot actively obstruct federal officers from doing so. Missouri then asked the U.S. Supreme Court to intervene, claiming that the federal government was overstepping its bounds and eroding the 10th Amendment's protection of state powers. This week, the Supreme Court declined to hear the case, effectively leaving the lower court's decision intact. No justice publicly dissented from the denial, signaling that even the court's conservative majority saw little constitutional ground to uphold Missouri's stance. For legal scholars, the denial was indeed just about gun policy. It was about reaffirming a fundamental principle of federalism. Professor Lawrence Tribe, a constitutional law expert, noted that Missouri's law wasn't about gun rights, it was about nullification. The Supreme Court's refusal to take the case is a quiet but firm reminder that the Civil War settled this question long ago. States cannot declare federal laws void. The decision has been praised by gun control advocates and civil rights groups who say Missouri's attempt to opt out of federal enforcement created dangerous gaps in public safety. Brady United, a gun violence prevention organization, released a statement calling the Supreme Court's move a victory for the rule of law and the safety of our communities. They pointed out that since the 2021 Act took effect, several Missouri law enforcement agencies withdrew from federal task forces, including those investigating firearm trafficking and domestic terrorism threats. On the other hand, Missouri officials and gun rights groups blasted the court's decision as a betrayal. Republican Governor Mike Parson said the federal government continues to trample on the rights of law-abiding Missourians. The National Rifle Association, NRA, echoed that sentiment, warning that the Biden administration could use this as a green light to expand federal gun control measures without pushback from the states. Legally speaking, though, this ruling doesn't expand federal power, it simply preserves the constitutional balance. States are still not required to enforce federal gun laws, but they cannot obstruct federal agencies from doing their jobs. In practical terms, this means that while Missouri's police can choose not to help the ATF or FBI in certain cases, they can no longer be punished or sued for cooperating. The issue also underscores a broader trend in American politics. the rise of sanctuary policies on both sides of the ideological spectrum. Just as liberal states like California have declared themselves sanctuaries for immigrants, conservative states like Missouri and Texas have tried to become sanctuaries for gun owners. Both strategies rely on selective enforcement of federal laws, and both have faced serious legal challenges grounded in the same constitutional principle, the Supremacy Clause. Data critics of Missouri's approach say it was doomed from the start. The U.S. Supreme Court has historically rejected similar nullification attempts going back to the 19th century, including when southern states tried to ignore federal tariffs or civil rights laws. Even recent cases like Prince v. United States 1997, which limited the federal government's power to compel state officials to enforce federal regulations, stopped far short of allowing states to declare those laws invalid. For everyday Missourians, the impact of this ruling may not be immediately visible, but its implications are profound. It restores coordination between local and federal law enforcement agencies, a crucial step as Missouri battles rising rates of gun violence in cities like St. Louis and Kansas City. It also sets a precedent that could influence similar laws being proposed in other states, including Arkansas and Alabama, which had been watching this case closely. Ultimately, the Supreme Court's move reaffirms that while America's constitutional framework allows states a wide degree of autonomy, it does not permit them to operate as separate legal islands. The Union, as the court subtly reminded, still stands united under one federal system, and that includes its gun laws. You've been watching Global Glimpse, where America's laws meet the nation's headlines. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Turn on the notification bell and share this video to keep more people informed about the real power behind U.S. politics and law. Until next time, stay aware, stay informed, and keep your eyes on justice.